Oh my god, that's so hot. Anyway, hey guys, what is going on? My name is Diggory and today I want to talk to you about shutter speed. Okay, so I covered the basics of shutter speed in my how to shoot manual video, but today I just want to go into it a bit more in depth and really explain how you can control and use the shutter speed. So what is shutter speed? Shutter speed is the amount of time that your image sensor in the camera is exposed to light for. Now the image sensor in a digital camera is exactly the same as what film does in an old camera. It basically turns the light into the photo. Now the way shutter speed works is to do with stops of light. I will input a little scale over here and you can see on the diagram that there's stops. So each number represents one stop of light. Now what this means is that each time you move up a number, you will half the amount of light that goes into the camera. Now if you actually have a look on your camera, you'll notice that there are more numbers than there are stops on that diagram, and that's because these are like third stops. So in between each stop you have like thirds. Now this basically just allows you to be more specific in your control of the shutter speed. It basically gives you more control over the amount of light that's entering your camera. So if I wanted to create light trails from cars and have that really nice kind of red line that you always see on like pictures of motorways at night, I'm going to need quite a slow shutter speed so that I can let more light in and allow the car to move past and allow all the light from the lights that the car's producing to be captured by the camera. And to do that I need the camera to be exposed to the light for a lot longer, so the shutter needs to be open for a much longer amount of time, kind of like 5 seconds or more kind of thing. Now if I wanted to freeze frame the car, just stop it so that I only have the car in movement on the road with no light trails, no movement blur, I need a much faster shutter speed so that the amount of light hitting the sensor is much shorter. Now to do this I'm going to need about a 4,000th of a second, or probably lower to be honest, but I'm just exaggerating the example. But by using that high shutter speed it means that I can capture and freeze a moment in time. Obviously there are some rules to follow with shutter speed, so if you wanted to have a really quick shutter speed at night time when there just isn't that much light, you're going to have to set your ISO up so high that it's just not going to be a nice picture. It's not worth it. Unfortunately there's nothing you can really do about that other than to go back during the day and take the picture then and kind of play around with it in editing software. The opposite effect will happen if you try to use a long shutter speed during the day. It's just going to get bleached bright. However, there is something that you can do about this, and that's called an ND filter or a neutral density filter. So it looks like this, and you can see that it's a much darker kind of piece of glass. You can see just looking through that it really darkens the background there. And basically what it allows you to do is shoot at longer shutter speeds during the day, because it darkens the image so that you can let in more light and still have a nicely balanced image. So if you want to take like a really nice silky smooth picture of water but you're only there during the day, an ND filter is the way to go. Really useful, I recommend you get them. Another rule for slow shutter speed is that once you get past about a 60th of a second, you're really going to start seeing some shake. The human body will just naturally shake, you can't do anything about that, and basically once you go past a 60th of a second down to 50, 40, 30, you will get some camera shake. You can't capture movement very well without there just being a tiny bit of movement. There are some tricks you can do to stabilize this and go a little bit lower. The first one is to get a camera strap on your camera. Unfortunately I don't have one to hand at the moment. You can put it around your neck or your arm and you basically just want to push against it, and that tension caused by the camera strap will create just a bit more stability for you to use handheld. But the main way of stabilizing your camera at low shutter speeds is a tripod. It's such an invaluable piece of equipment. If you're a new photographer and you've got a camera and lens, the next thing you should buy over anything else is a tripod. It is honestly the most useful piece of external equipment that you're ever going to use. There are certain rules with shutter speed and lens focal lengths as well. Now lens focal length is basically that number it has on the side. So this lens is 55 to 250, so it means that this lens has a focal length range of 55mm all the way to 250 millimeters. Now, if I was to put this lens at 100 millimeter focal length, it means that I can't put my shutter speed below 100th of a second without causing movement and camera shake. Now, most lenses nowadays have something called image stabilization. This lens has it right here. Basically what that means is that inside the lens there's stabilization elements so that you can put your shutter speed lower than whatever focal length you're using. So if I was all the way at 250, it means that I can put my shutter speed lower than 250th of a second, which is so useful when you're shooting in even just a slightly darker environment, because it means that I can actually get the correct amount of light for my image. With regards to flash photography, you can't put your shutter speed higher than a 3/20th of a second, otherwise the shutter gets too fast and you'll end up with black lines down the middle of your photo. Example here. I was shooting pictures of bottles, I put my shutter speed too high, and now I have a huge black line straight down the middle. Basically what happens is the shutter speed only catches half of the flash. So half your image is in nice exposure and the other half is just really not. So if you're really curious about the really technical aspects of how your camera works, I'm now going to explain the shutter in both a DSLR and a mirrorless camera. If you're not interested in how your shutter actually works, you can click off now. I've covered the most important points, but if you are interested, stay tuned, I'm now going to explain it. So the way a shutter works in a DSLR camera is that there's a mirror inside. Now when you go to change your lens, you can see it when you take off the cap for the camera. You can actually see the mirror, it's at like a diagonal, so that when the light comes in, it hits it and then it goes straight up. And that's how you use the optical viewfinder at the top of your camera. Now when you take a photo and you're looking through the optical viewfinder, you'll notice that it goes black, and that's when you take the photo. Now the reason this happens is because the mirror actually springs up and then your image sensor is just behind there. Now the image sensor is covered with two doors. You have a top door and a bottom door. I'm going to put an animation on the side here so that you can actually see what happens. Basically what happens is when you take the photo, the bottom door will move down, your image sensor will then be exposed to the light for however long you set your shutter speed for, and then the top door comes down, and that's what takes the photo. And then the mirror flicks back down and the doors basically reset. The top door goes back up and the bottom door comes back up. That's how the DSLR camera image sensor works. Now in a mirrorless camera, because there's no mirror there, the image sensor is always exposed, and when you take the picture, the bottom door will come up and then it will come down, your image sensor will be exposed for however long the shutter speed is for, and then it comes back down and resets. And that's basically how the image sensor works in a mirrorless camera. Now a mirrorless camera also has what's called an electronic shutter, and this is basically the image sensor being exposed and the camera turning the sensor on and off very fast. And that's basically how an electronic shutter works. There are other types of shutter, such as a rotating shutter, but honestly by the time you come into contact with these types of shutters, you're actually going to be fairly knowledgeable in the way of photography, as they're honestly not common at all. And to get into that kind of camera with that kind of shutter, you need to know what you're looking for. That's basically it. That's shutter speed. I really hope this video helped. If it did, please leave a like down below and subscribe if you want to see more. So yeah, this has been Diggory. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.